Ta-da!
Yeah, I don't know what you are.
I'm the Phantom of the Opera.
Really?
Hey, look, I had $20 saved for a costume. This was the best I could do.
Well, I guess it looks fine. But what isn't fine is that how the closet from your new place is connected right next door to the bathroom. It doesn't leave the best smell. No. Oh.
You know, I still gotta figure out what that key is that connects any closet of mine to the dark vampire dimension.
I'm still concerned that you still have not gotten around to finding it.
I'm lazy. Plus, I don't got time for that right now. I have to work on the Halloween video, and this year's Halloween video is gonna be on the 2016 Ghostbusters movie. You know that one with like the women in it, the women Ghostbusters, right? Remember when that came out?
It's unfortunate in some way. Out of all the movies in that franchise, that one in particular is the real ghost. Literally, after Left Eater's reception it got, basically made itself undead. It joined us here soon after. You see, when a movie thinks it's that big, it's gonna start an entire franchise, but doesn't go anywhere, it's bound to join us. So, things like Ghostbusters, Amazing Spider-Man, Tron, essentially anything related to Gerard Leto. That guy does a lot of work for us, honestly. Franchise killer, I think you mortals call him.
Sounds wild. Alright, I gotta get working on the video, but you have a happy Halloween, and I'll see you later. Bye now.
He didn't mention the hair? Rude.
Happy Halloween, everyone! It's time for the annual spooky themed David Definitive Edition video. As you can see, I'm dressed up as the Phantom of the Opera, keeping up with the tradition that the costume that I wear in the Halloween video has little to nothing to do with what I'm actually talking about. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about the 2016 Ghostbusters movie. Remember that one? You know, it was directed by Paul Feig. It starred, female Ghostbusters as the core characters: Kristen Wiig, Kate McKinnon, Melissa McCarthy, Leslie Jones. Remember that one? It didn't do that well at the box office, it didn't get any sequels, and the franchise has kind of not really acknowledged it. Any Ghostbusters film after this mostly just stuck to the original continuity of the original film. There was a time where this movie was a big talking point. It was back in 2016, and man, was it a horrible time to be alive, to be a Ghostbusters fan. Most people hated this movie. They hated the idea that it was being made because it was a reboot of a really beloved 80s film, and also it was a reboot that had its main characters be women, which upset a whole core group of people whose opinion doesn't matter. The whole discourse regarding this film was just really annoying to follow, and it was one of the first movies that I actively followed what the online discourse was, or at least the earliest I can remember. And man, I remember it gave me a headache then, and it gave me a headache now. But regardless, this movie came out, and then it didn't do well, and now not a lot of people talk about it. But after thinking about it, I think this movie actually left a bigger impact on not just Ghostbusters, but also the online discourse that we see nowadays in more ways than we really want to admit, mainly because the effects were pretty negative. And this is just something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. I should be thinking about other stuff like my schoolwork or something, but nope, I'm thinking about this. But anyway, I just really want to talk about Ghostbusters 2016 and how I think it's a movie that I liked it when it first came out, but now I think it's not good, but not as bad as I think people were making it out to be back then. But also that it kind of still did ruin a lot of things, and we're gonna talk about that. So let's get started. We all know the original Ghostbusters film that came out in 1984, directed by Ivan Reitman and starring Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, and Ernie Hudson. It's an amazing film, honestly, and it's one of my favorite films of all time, and for a lot of people, it's the same for them, because this movie was great. A perfect blend of comedy and the supernatural. It's honestly an incredible movie that has never been able to really replicate that same success that it did with the first one. Not to say that nothing that came afterwards was successful, it's just that certain magic that the first movie had had. It was like lightning in a bottle that was never able to happen again. For example, like afterwards we got the real Ghostbusters cartoon, which is a great show. I've seen a few episodes of it and I really enjoyed it. It's like a fun Saturday morning cartoon that elevates like the ghost aspect of the show by having just these really weird looking but also crazy stuff going on with the types of ghosts that they can show. And it's like a lot of fun, but it also was a bit more lighthearted than the original movie. It didn't have that same edge, which made sense because it was like a Saturday morning cartoon. And then you had Ghostbusters 2, I heard has its fans, but it didn't really do as well as the first, and I've heard it's not as good as the original. I haven't seen it yet myself, so I can't really comment too much, but that's just what I've heard. And then there's Ghostbusters 3, which never happened. A lot of videos out there that explain what happened with this movie, but what I can gather is just that apparently nobody could really settle on a script, and Bill Murray just did not want to do it. The closest thing we ever got to with Ghostbusters 3 was Ghostbusters the video game in 2009, which actually brought back the actors from the film, and aspects in that game, like story-wise, were inspired by various different scripts for Ghostbusters 3. And that's not even to mention things like comic books or toys or other video games that came out. There was a lot of Ghostbusters media outside of the original movie, but the first movie was just kind of that golden standard that nothing was really able to live up to. And the best things for Ghostbusters kind of just did their own thing, like the cartoon. Also, there was another Ghostbusters cartoon called Extreme Ghostbusters. I don't know what the general consensus is on that, but it does look pretty cool from what I've seen. I haven't seen full episodes, I've only seen pictures. Anyway, that's what you need to know for Ghostbusters. Now, Sony, on the other hand, during the 2010s, they really wanted a franchise because franchises were hitting it big with things like the MCU, Star Wars was starting up again, the DCEU had started, then a lot of people just really wanted their franchises, and some of them stuck, some of them did not, but everyone wanted a piece of that franchise pie, and Sony desperately wanted some. They've had franchises, but nothing like super active that can get people to the seats. And their best franchises had kind of already ended, like things like Ghostbusters hadn't really had a movie since like Ghostbusters 2. Men in Black had already finished with Men in Black 3, and Spider-Man, they unfortunately lost that because the Amazing Spider-Man series did not perform as well as they wanted to, and they ended up having to share Spider-Man with Marvel and Disney. While they still had a hand in the Tom Holland movies, there wasn't really a franchise they can call solely theirs. They needed something to bring people in the theater, something that they can call their very own big modern franchise. And they thought, why not Ghostbusters? People really want to see a Ghostbusters 3, but unfortunately because of the stuff going on behind the scenes with the script and Bill Murray, and then later Harold Ramis passing away, they realized they can't do Ghostbusters 3 anymore now. But they could possibly reboot it. I mean, it could probably work. They got this new guy, Paul Feig, I hope I'm saying his name right. Paul Feig, is that how you say it? He can direct it, and he's directed some pretty funny movies like Bridesmaids, The Heat, Spy, and then you also got these new actresses. All right, okay, some pretty funny people. Kristen Wiig, Leslie Jones, Kay McKinnon, Melissa McCarthy. All right, okay, maybe this could be solid. Yeah, it's something different. It's an all-female Ghostbusters. This could probably work. I cannot see how this can backfire. I was watching the 50th anniversary special for SNL earlier this year, and in the red carpet premiere, there was one moment that had Kristen Wiig, Kate McKinnon, and Leslie Jones talking about each other on their time, like on SNL, and some of their favorite moments. And in my mind, all I could think was, wow, those are the 3 out of the 4 2016 Ghostbusters. I wonder if they acknowledged that they were in that movie. Like, I'm sure they still remember, but I wonder if do they try to forget that they were in that? Do they talk about it behind the scenes? Like, oh yeah, remember when we were in that? You know, I just kind of wonder. Anyway, the trailer for this movie came out and people hated it. It was one of the most disliked videos on YouTube ever at the time. And man, people were super mad about this movie. A lot of people were super mad because it was a reboot and people naturally hated reboots, which makes sense. That's a natural thing to hate. But they also hate the fact that it had women, which is a thing that I don't really agree people should be hating on for this movie. Man, the online discourse for this was terrible. You had a group of people saying they hated the idea because they thought the idea of female Ghostbusters was stupid. Like they're trying to push in like this woke agenda. And then you had another group of people getting mad at those people saying like, what? You're just saying that because there's women in this. You can't hate this movie, otherwise you're sexist. You had a group of people who just didn't really think the movie looked that good. Like remember what happened with James Rolfe from Cinemassacre? He had a video where he said said he didn't want to talk about the movie mainly because it just didn't look interesting to him, and that's why he wasn't gonna watch it. And then people got mad at him because he didn't have a particular side, you know, right? Like, why do you have to talk about this movie? Like, he's obligated to, or like he's sexist or something like that. And honestly, all these conversations were super annoying at the time because like it really elevated specific views within people. Like, obviously, I don't think every single person who disliked the idea of this movie was inherently sexist. Not at all. You could totally think this movie looked garbage, mainly because of literally everything else surrounding it, other than the fact that the main characters are women. But no, online, the very voices that were the most vocal were the ones who were against it, solely because it was about women. They saw it as a gimmick. Like, why are they trying to push in these things? It wasn't the thing that started that sort of like, oh, go woke, go broke mentality, because that had existed prior. I remember the year before, people were getting mad at Star Wars because one of the main characters, which was a stormtrooper, Finn, was black. Oh, what? No. People were mad about that, and that's just like a minor thing. But like here with Ghostbusters, it felt like this was like the height of it all at the moment, and I kind of hate that. That sucks. And back when this movie came out, I was actually kind of looking forward to it because I had just become a fan of the franchise. So I was just like, ooh, a new Ghostbusters movie I could watch in theaters. And then I saw people online talk about how they hated it because it had women. And in my mind, I was just like, bro, those people are so annoying. I'm gonna go ahead and watch this movie because I support women and I support good things that have women. And this movie was not good, but I remember liking it at the time because I didn't really have the best taste back then. You could argue I still don't have the best taste now, but back then I thought it was pretty funny. Not as good as the original, but I thought I enjoyed it. Then later on, I would rewatch it a few times and realize it's not really that good. Yeah, at least I enjoyed it at the time. But everyone else, nope. I don't think most of those people even bothered to watch the film because it did not perform that well, leading to Sony to cancel any future developments for any sequels to this film. And they even started like a new thing, a new production company, Ghost Corps, which was going to handle everything Ghostbusters related, and this was their first project. But afterwards, anything that Ghost Corps did was not attached to this film. However, it did win favorite film at the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards, so you know, there's that. I mentioned before that I actually liked this movie when I first saw it, but like now, what's different? What do I not like about it now? Let's start with the comedy in the film. Hey, this movie has funny people in it. It was directed and written by funny people, so hey, you know, maybe it will at least be somewhat funny. So when it comes to my criticism towards this movie, I really want to start with the comedy because it's the one thing that I can really just say it just didn't work for me personally, because that's how comedy works. Comedy is subjective. One person can find something hilarious when another person doesn't, and vice versa. But there is a lot of people who say this movie isn't funny, so I do think there is something to say genuinely about it. So I'm gonna try to explain what I think doesn't really work for me personally, and maybe it'll apply to other people. So I mentioned before, but this movie is directed by Paul Feig, who director I wasn't the most familiar with when I first saw this movie, but ever since then I have actually seen some of his other movies, mainly things like The Heat, Spy, and Bridesmaids, all movies that I think are pretty funny, honestly, from varying degrees. I don't think they're the most hilarious films in the world, like they're not really my personal favorite comedy films, but I do think they were enjoyable enough. It was written by Paul Feig, but it was also co-written by Kate Dippold, who wrote for a few of Paul Feig's movies, but also wrote for the series Parks and Recreation, which I think is a really funny show. It's one of my favorite shows ever. It's a show that's made me laugh so hard whenever I rewatch it, and I can think of like so many hilarious moments from that series, so that gave me a little bit of hope that hey, maybe there could have at least been some funny jokes, especially since we have people who have worked with funny women before. Paul Feig, most of his movies have female protagonists, some of which are in this movie, and then Kate Dippold, like I said, wrote for Parks and Rec, which has a lot of funny women. Like, I thought maybe, you know, there could be something. But honestly, on this rewatch, this movie just wasn't doing it for me. I didn't really laugh a single time throughout the film. The jokes weren't painful or anything, but everything just kind of felt by the numbers. Like, oh, okay, here's like a funny moment. Like, I can identify what the joke is supposed to be, but it just didn't work for me. And honestly, I think a big reason for that might be because the characters are not really that defined in this movie. So the characters in this movie, like the four Ghostbusters, are not exact one-for-ones to the Ghostbusters from the original film, but they still have some things here and there that are supposed to remind you like, oh hey, what they're supposed to be. Like Kate McKinnon is sort of supposed to be like Harold Ramis's character, or they're kind of like the weirdo of the whole group. You have like Melissa McCarthy's character, who's kind of like Ray, who makes a lot more of the gadgets and is like technical whatevers for the ghost. You have like Kristen Wiig's character, who's kind of like Bill Murray's character, where he's like supposed to be someone who does believe in the ghost, but is also somewhat more cynical compared to the others. And then you got Leslie Jones' character, who's kind of like Ernie Hudson's character, where they're more of like the people who aren't that familiar with the academia world, like these other characters, and are the more like down to earth of the core group. Still have like other things that make them different, but I don't think it's like different enough to make me go like, I can see what these characters are supposed to be in this movie. Like, they're not really well defined like I think the originals are. And because they're not as well defined in this film, they just kind of have some traits that are somewhat similar to the original Ghostbusters. But for example, I think like Kate McKinnon's character is still pretty different from Egon, but like I don't think it's like different like to the point where I'm like interested in it. And I also kind of get the vibe that maybe the actors weren't either. Like, the actresses in this movie, Kristen Wiig, Kate McKinnon, Melissa McCarthy, Leslie Jones, have all been funny. Kristen Wiig and Kate McKinnon, I think, are two of the funniest women that have ever been on SNL. And Melissa McCarthy, I think, well, I don't think she's as funny as those two. I still think she can be enjoyable from time to time in other comedy films. Same for Leslie Jones. I'm not as in love with her comedy as much as like Kristen Wiig and Kate McKinnon's, but she's made me laugh a few times from episodes of SNL that I've seen. But here, it doesn't really seem like they can really fully play with these characters. Like, I think back to like learning the behind the scenes for like the film of Ghostbusters and hearing that a lot of the best lines from Bill Murray were improvised. And here, maybe there was some improv, but like none of it really stands out. This movie's not really that quotable. And again, I just think that ties to the characters just not defined enough so that the actors can really get a good sense of like, oh, what kind of character this is supposed to be, and like how to have fun with them like on set. And this kind of applies to other characters too. Like Chris Hemsworth's secretary character, he's like the assistant to the Ghostbusters. He's like an idiot. He doesn't really know how to do his job and often like messes things up. But I think what bothers me the most about him is just that it also seems like he's kind of like actively sabotaging the Ghostbusters. Like, at least with other dumb characters, like you think like Homer in like the early seasons of Simpsons, or like Patrick Star in like early SpongeBob. They're very well-meaning. They're just like their dumbness. It just kind of gets in the way of them actually helping the main characters. But you kind of don't really get mad at them because you can tell, like, you know, they're just like they still are well-meaning. Here, I don't really get the vibe that he even cares about his job. He seems like kind of annoying and kind of like a jerk. And so because of that, when he does things that are dumb, I just like am more annoyed by him. Like, oh my god, Jesus, this guy really. Also, apparently Cecily Strong is in this film as like, I think the assistant to the mayor. I don't remember her exact role. I've become more of a Saturday Night Live fan these past 2 years, and when I've been rewatching like older episodes of the show, I think I've come to the conclusion that like Cecily Strong is my favorite performer from that show ever. I think she's absolutely hilarious. Some of the best sketches have her in them, and overall I just think she's amazing to watch.
What comes first in the science room?
The guy?
The guy?
Yeah, my older sister said the guy like always comes first. I don't know what that means.
Oh my god, no!
And like, she's hilarious, and so I got excited when I saw her in this film. I forgot she was in this. All right, maybe there'll be some funny stuff from her, but not really. I mean, to be fair, her character is like more like straight-laced than the others. Like, you know, she's kind of supposed to be like serious, working for the mayor and stuff. But at the same time, like, I don't know, I feel like there still could have been fun stuff you could play with her. And yeah, she's not a major character or anything, but like, I was hoping maybe she could say something that's funny, but not really. And I think like that just shows that this movie has like such wasted talent here. So I think some bits go on for way too long. Like, there are some jokes that I just do not think are funny, but they just keep dragging them out. Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Ernie Hudson make cameos in the film, and like they're fine. Bill Murray's is like really like weird because I read somewhere that he agreed to be in this film because he was like he wanted to be supportive of Kate McKinnon, but like when I actually see him in the film, he's not funny, and it looks like he just doesn't want to be there. This movie had a lot of stuff that was cut out from it. I remember this because I actually had a Blu-ray of the film, and it came with an extended version of the movie, and I remember I watched it at the time and I thought, it's really not that good. I would rather just watch the standard theatrical version. I was going to rewatch it for this video, but then I realized I didn't want to do that because I'm running out of time recording this, so I was just like, I'm just gonna watch the theatrical version. But I do remember things from the extended version that it just had like more bits that just went on for a long time. I'm honestly not that big a fan of extended edition versions of comedy films, but that's a conversation for a whole other day. Point is, I thought about watching it and I felt too lazy to like grab my Blu-ray of it. I even still had it just to watch it again. So yeah, the point is there is an extended version of this movie if you wanted to see it. I do not want to. Yeah, this movie is overall not really funny. Hopefully I did a good job explaining why I personally don't find it funny. I probably didn't, but hey, you know, maybe this movie could still be saved if it had like with the ghost. You know, the ghosts are cool. Ghosts are cool. Maybe the ghosts are cool in this. So this movie has ghosts. Obviously, it's Ghostbusters. It'd be weird if it didn't have ghosts. And the designs for the ghosts overall are not really that interesting. Most of them just kind of look very humanoid. We have Slimer and the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man in this as well, but the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man is like a parade balloon. None of them really look that visually interesting to me. In fact, I think a lot of the humanoid ones kind of look like Spirit Halloween animatronics, if that makes any sense. The glow, like the colors they use for them, like the glow, is kind of not the most visually appealing to me. I also get that they're supposed to be kind of gross looking or creepy looking, but like not in a way that I like. Visually unappealing in a way that is not appealing to me, but I would still like it. I just want it to be visually unappealing in a way that it is appealing to me. So the villain, alright, I want to talk about the villain for a bit. I forgot his name, but he's like a guy who like works as a janitor or something, hates the concept of like society overall. He just doesn't like people, and he thinks he's been like outcasted by the rest of the world. So what he wants to do, at least the ghosts who have also been like seen as like forgotten by the people, and release them, and then become like a new god amongst like amongst the new world or something like that. Describe it like that. Hearing it out loud, I kind of think that could be kind of interesting. Like, I don't know, it could, like, maybe like they could have played with that. Like, in the first ghost of the Ghostbusters encounter is like this woman who was like trapped in a basement by like her father and then died, and then kind of still feels like hatred towards him. And she was also told to be like apparently not that liked by people, so that's why they like trapped her in a basement or something. And I kind of think maybe that they could have explored that. Like, you know, what if the ghosts were just like people who like had unfinished business, who were hated by everyone, and so that would kind of tie more to like the villain here, where he feels like he connects with the ghosts. If we explored more like the specific ghosts, like learning like what their backstories are, like how they were hated and how they died and how it made them angry, and seeing how they like how our main villain kind of connects with them in that sense, that could have been more fascinating. And in fact, even if we saw more of the villain, like see like why he has this outlook, why he hates the world, and why he wants to release these ghosts, how he even like connected to them, like how he knows about these ghosts at all, I think could have made him more of an engaging antagonist. But we barely see him in the film, and so whenever he does appear, I just kind of go, oh yeah, that's right, he's in this. And then later he like dies and then becomes like a ghost and then like possesses people, and then he turns into a ghost, like a big one that's just like the logo of like the Ghostbusters, and then they have to fight him, and then he's gone. And like he does release the ghosts amongst New York, and it's like kind of cool. There's actually like a pretty cool action sequence with some cool music with Kate McKinnon's character, but like overall it's like it's not the most interesting thing in the world, aside from that moment that I said was kind of cool. Yeah, I think there was like an interesting idea there, but it wasn't really explored, and it was kind of like pushed away to the side. I'm trying to remember if maybe it was more explored in the extended version. Now maybe I think I should have watched it. I don't know. Point is, like, it feels like there was more to him, but it got cut out, is the vibe that I'm getting from him. But if they played more with what I was saying about the idea of like the ghosts being dead people with hatred, and then exploring more of the villain, that could have made this movie feel especially different from the original. It could have made this villain feel different and more substantial, and therefore given this movie, I don't know, somewhat more justification for existing, because it would have explored an interesting idea. I'm trying not to do too many of those, like, oh, in the original type of things, like too much compare and contrast, because I do still want to look at this movie as its own thing. But I do want to talk about this one thing, where I was watching the Movies That Made Us episode on Ghostbusters. The Movies That Made Us is a show on Netflix. It's like a mini documentary series where they go over the makings of different movies. And in the Ghostbusters episode, it was talked about how Dan Aykroyd talked about how he was very inspired by the world of the supernatural because it's something that he already had an interest in, and like and how it tied to his family, and because he was already from the comedy scene as well, that led to the interest in the script for Ghostbusters. And that's the thing with this movie. I honestly think with Ghostbusters, it's best to get people who are both familiar with the comedy scene but also the supernatural scene. Like the vibe here that the people working on this film maybe really only knew comedy, although that's also debatable because the movie's not funny, like I said. Here, it's like, no, they just kind of use ghosts like in general, like a very generic-esque way of using ghosts. And so yeah, the movie fails at both comedy and an engaging ghost story. biggest talking point regarding this film was that the main Ghostbusters in the film were women. There had been female Ghostbusters before, like Janine was a Ghostbuster in a few episodes of the cartoon, The Real Ghostbusters, and in Extreme Ghostbusters, one of the main characters was a woman. However, with this, it would be all the Ghostbusters being women, and people got really mad about this. And a lot of people called it a gimmick. Like they said, like, oh, they're just doing this to sell tickets, you know, right? Because that's how it is. You only put like non-men in the leading roles to just, you know, get butts and seats. Like very much that classic, oh, they're doing this to be woke, trying to force in an agenda or something like that, you know, just those basic buzzwords that people use online. Honestly, when watching the movie, I don't really get the vibe that this was a gimmick or anything like that. When I was like looking back on the movies like Paul Feig has directed, a lot of them do have female protagonists, and Kristen Wiig and Melissa McCarthy are people that he has worked with before on things like Bridesmaids and The Heat and Spy. Kate McKinnon was on SNL at the time, so was Leslie Jones, and I just kind of get the vibe that Paul Feig wasn't really making a female Ghostbusters to force an agenda or to say something about feminism. He kind of just did it because he wanted to work with these people, that some of which he was already familiar with, and they just kind of all happened to be women. I think that's okay. Like, don't get me wrong, I would not be mad if this movie did want to talk about feminism or like the struggles of women. Some people would be mad about that, but personally, I would not have been mad. In fact, I probably think that would have made this movie somewhat more interesting to talk about. But if this really was just, hey, a Ghostbusters story that just happens to have women, I think that would be okay. I don't really know if anyone at the studio did push this forward because they thought it'd be like a fun gimmick. It seems like Paul just picked these women because he thought they were funny and he wanted to work with them. And I think that's perfectly great. I think that's okay. Like I said, I do think all their talent was wasted in the film. However, going back to what I was saying earlier, if this movie did want it to have like more themes of feminism, I think it probably could have worked. Like the story of Ghostbusters already, you could argue, is like the story of like people from the academia world finding more success when starting their own business and becoming blue-collar workers. And women aren't really the type of people you see doing blue-collar work, or like, at least not in most media that is portrayed. So maybe exploring that aspect, like, you know, not only that these women were like being called crazy for believing in ghosts, but like now they're starting a business. I don't know, explore like just like the kind of problems that would surface from that. I think that could have been somewhat fascinating. I don't know if they would have done that well given the track record of this movie, mostly not doing its ideas well, but I think it at least would have given me something to talk about in this video. So this movie, after it came out, did not do well. It was considered a box office bomb for the Sony at the time, and it didn't get any sequels. The only acknowledgement that I can think of that the movie got afterwards was that it got a crossover comic with the IDW Ghostbusters comic. IDW did Ghostbusters comics, and they had one like a mini-series that was a crossover with the original Ghostbusters and these Ghostbusters, the female Ghostbusters. And I haven't read it myself, but the art in it looks pretty nice, so maybe I will read it. You know, the movie just did not do well, and people do not really talk about it much, but I do think this movie had a bigger effect on online discourse. Like, this movie was not the thing that started this hatred towards diversity in movies that we see now. It already existed prior, but I think it was the straw that broke the camel's back that really led things to the state that it is now online. Like, it was taking an established property and changing it up this much by making the new characters women. The movie itself turning out not good, becoming a failure at the box office, and it just being not entertaining for a lot of people. This was kind of like the final push for a lot of people to really have that mentality that, yeah, this kind of level of diversity, this kind of change to try to stay politically correct or woke is the thing that ruins films. And honestly, that is not the case. This movie is bad, but it having women is not the reason for it being bad. But for a lot of people, it was. So that's how nowadays we get a bunch of YouTube videos saying, go woke, go broke, or let's talk about Blue Beetle. Hating just the idea of any movie having a character that's like a woman or a person of color or someone part of the LGBTQIA. Just anything that isn't like a straight white man in the leading role. It's calling it all forced diversity. Oh, it's just a gimmick to try to get people in there. Oh, why they have to put this like woke crap into like my movies, my entertainment, like stuff like that. And it is so dumb. Ghostbusters, like I know some of you might say it's an exaggeration to blame it on this film, and to some extent I agree, because I don't really think this movie is that bad. I don't think it's good, like I said before, but it's mostly just mediocre to me. It's not that funny, and it doesn't really have an interesting story, but it also is very inoffensive to me. It's not really one of the worst comedies I've ever seen, and when I think Ghostbusters, I don't think this really ruins the franchise overall. But I just think about like how a lot of the mindset that people have online now, whenever they see something trying to be more inclusive, and then just getting mad at it. New like animated Batman film, Batman Aztec, where people get mad at it because like, oh, they're trying to include, because they're trying to like portray a different culture but with the characters of Batman, and then getting mad about it. I saw another video that's just like, let's talk about Batman Aztec, and then I see stuff like that and I just kind of think, man, it legit reminds me of 2016 again, when people were talking about this movie solely because it had women Ghostbusters in it. If not all, then at least some of the blame does kind of go to this movie's underperformance. Again, not the movie itself, just the fact that it underperformed. I guess the quality too, because it really isn't that good. It's really not that terrible, it's just kind of like inoffensive or just not interesting. All I ask you guys is, please, if you think a movie is bad, please give it like genuine criticism. Don't say it's bad because, oh, it's woke, or like it has like a woman main character or a person of color character or LGBTQIA character. Just say it's bad for legit any other reason, okay? Like say like the story is not interesting, or like the comedy isn't funny, or like, I don't know, legit like something that actually sounds like criticism. So now we reach the final thing. So I already talked about how I think this movie like ruined online discourse, made it the nightmare that it is today, but it also affected Ghostbusters. I think afterwards this did affect like how Sony handled the Ghostbusters franchise. So from now on, everything was tied back to the original. Ghostbusters 2016 was in its own continuity, and while it had references to the original and even had cameos from the original Ghostbusters, it was its own continuity with a new set of characters, and they were probably going to revisit like other concepts from the original film if it got a sequel, but it didn't. So now we're just getting movies that are strictly tied to the original. So you got Ghostbusters Afterlife, which is a movie that I remember liking when I first saw it. I decided to rewatch it for this video to see if my opinions are still the same, and honestly, not really. I don't think the movie is bad, and I do think it's at least better than this movie, than Ghostbusters 2016, but something about it just really gives off a depressing vibe. Its whole story is focused on like the granddaughter of Egon, and she and her mother and her brother moved to like the place that he used to stay at when he like left them, and it turned out that, oh, it's because he was hiding like this secret like darkness in this town. And it's like the return of Zool and Gozer. Kind of entertaining for the first half, where it's like mostly doing its own thing. It's very much your traditional like small town mystery type of thing, but like, I don't know, it was kind of entertaining. And then by the second half, it just like tries to repeat so much from the original 1984 film, bringing back Gozer and like Zool, and then like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and like a ghost that's not Slimer but basically looks like Slimer. Even though this movie had a main character that was female, that being Egon's granddaughter, she was still technically tied to the male characters, that being the original Ghostbusters, who come in the climax to save the day. Bill Murray, Ernie Hudson, and Dan Aykroyd in their original suits, but they look old, they look tired, and also we have a CGI ghost Egon. That's right, they did a thing to bring Harold Ramis into this film, even though he passed away. And while I think I heard that his family okayed it, but when I watched the film, it kind of makes me go, I don't know how ethically okay the actual Harold Ramis would have been with this. And when there's that moment where the ghost Harold Ramis sees the other three Ghostbusters, and it's supposed to be like a fun, like nice moment, like, oh, they're reunited with their friend, I just kind of go like, wow, this low-key makes me sad. Not like in the way it wants me to. It makes me sad in that like I feel kind of like grossed out that they're doing this at all. I actually, surprisingly, I do have a lot to say regarding the film, enough so that I could probably make it its own video, but I don't think I want to, because like I just don't think I'm interested enough to really talk about Ghostbusters Afterlife to that full extent. All you need to know is that I think the movie is fine, and I think it's kind of cool how Jason Reitman, the son of Ivan Reitman, directed this, but ultimately I think you can tell it's trying to harken too much to the original. Bro, please move on. And also, they got another movie, Frozen Empire, which I have not seen, but I heard it's not good. So, I don't know, maybe one day I'll watch that and that could be a video. We'll see. I hope. I don't know. That movie is a sequel to this. It just brings back the original Ghostbusters, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Ernie Hudson again in an attempt to not let go of the past. And ultimately, I do think a big part of that is because their one attempt to try something different did not do well, even though that movie also did try to have connections to the past as well. I remember the scene was just them going like hinting at Zool and Gozer for the next film. So you know, who knows what they would have done with that. Oh, and what about Sony? Well, as you can see, they still are trying with Ghostbusters, but nothing is not really reaching the critical or box office levels that they really want. And then they got Spider-Man again, kind of, with the Spider-Man villains now getting movies like Venom, Morbius, Madam Web, she's not a villain, but like still, and Craven, all movies that have varying successes. And by varying successes, I mean the Venom movies are doing pretty well, and the other ones are not. And they also tried Men in Black again with Men in Black International. Also did not do that well. So ultimately, yeah, Sony, you know, their Ghostbusters reboot failed, and now they're still kind of trying to do with Ghostbusters and other things, but they still have not yet found that big franchise, except for maybe the Spider-Verse movies. So at least they got that going for them. So in conclusion, Ghostbusters 2016, or Ghostbusters Answer the Call, is not a good movie. I don't think it's funny. I think it wastes its comedic talent, and it's overall not that interesting, and probably the worst installment in the Ghostbusters franchise from what I've seen. But I also don't think it really deserves the hate that it got. Like I said, it's inoffensive, and it doesn't ruin the franchise. It just kind of was just like a bad attempt at rebooting the franchise. And because of that, I feel bad that the movie got the hate that it did, because like, I mean, I don't know, it's like, it's not really worth getting super angry about it, because like, in all honesty guys, there were more important things going on in 2016 that people needed to worry about, and they did worry about it, and stuff that we're kind of unfortunately facing now. I think people were worried that they were going to do a lot more of these all-female reboots, but the only other one that I think that we got after this was the Ocean's 8 movie, which was like a reboot of like the Ocean's movies, and I don't know how that movie did, but I heard it's just also not that good. So yeah, I think I feel bad for this movie, because I saw people hate it at the time to the extent that they did, and then see how it just kind of caused like all the chaos that we are still facing now with how people talk about movies nowadays going woke, even though woke is supposed to be a good thing. It just kind of makes me feel bad, because I'm like, Ghostbusters 2016, you don't deserve this. All you were was just like a pretty bad movie, not like something that should have caused like the end of the world. At the very least, you know, people should have been less annoying about it. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video, and I really hope that people do not comment those go woke, go broke type of things on my YouTube video, because that would be really annoying. I am deleting any one of those comments that I see. I'm gonna go eat some candy and watch an actual good spooky movie for Halloween. Maybe I'll rewatch the original Ghostbusters. I already did for this video, because I watched this, Ghostbusters Afterlife and Ghostbusters 2016, but at the same time, Ghostbusters, the original, is so good. I love it so much, so I'm just gonna do that. I'm gonna go rewatch Ghostbusters. Okay, bye!